Early in graduate school, I was tasked to present a demo of a fake news detection tool I had built. This was right around 2016 when the term fake news was very hot and things were very bad, and I don't really need to re-describe this era of ancient history to this audience. I was reluctant to do this demo presentation. While the metrics suggested that the tool did much better than random chance at classifying false news in a lab setting, I had also seen it do some very stupid things. I went on with the presentation because I sort of had to. I was a grad student. But I added all of these other caveats of what could go wrong if we deployed it and what context it might work in. Despite all of my hedging, the first thing one of the audience members said to me after this presentation, I kid you not, is we need to get a venture capitalist firm in here and launch this thing. Needless to say, I had some problems with this suggestion. First off, I don't know why we have to make money on absolutely everything, but I digress. More important to this story is that after a 20-minute demonstration full of apprehension and warnings of what could go wrong, this guy thought that I was going to solve the world's misinformation problems. And if you've been living the past few years, you will know that I have not solved the world's misinformation problems with this AI tool. So how could this be? Well, what our audience friend, I, and many others got wrong is that predicting when the news is false or unreliable or not credible inherently breaks the fundamental rules of machine learning and predictive analytics. In particular, these tools break what is called the IID assumption, which states that we can only make accurate predictions when the data points given to our news system are independent and identically distributed to the training data. In other words, we can only make reasonable predictions on data and situations that are similar to the past. But news, by its very nature, is constantly changing. The topics focused on, the language style used, the context around the reporting, the emotions in the reporting, they all change. They change across time, across subcultures, across vernaculars, ideologies, and countries. Not only does the content and the context change, but the actual ground truth underlying the news changes, just like in science. Right? We all remember this happening multiple times during the COVID-19 pandemic. When we test the generalizability of these models proposed in the literature, these fundamental conceptual issues come to light. For example, we know that the choice of ground truth when training the model can significantly change the outcomes of the model and bias them in certain ways. And these ground truths are not chosen by the scientist, but are often chosen by third parties, who are often for-profit entities that lack transparency, or they're chosen by fact checkers who simply can't cover all of the information. As a simple example of how this can go wrong, when you train a text-based fake news detection tool on US news, it often classifies UK news as false or unreliable, which is pretty silly. So the properties of news make predictions in the wild unpredictable. And it makes tools prone to errors that are not captured in our traditional frameworks. Despite news inherently breaking all of these fundamental rules, we seem to ignore it a lot, and this idea of move fast and break things persist. Between 2016 and 2023, over 14,000 papers were indexed by Google Scholar that use the phrase fake news detection. 14,000, I'm not kidding about that. Much of the research in this area has been built around optimizing on these small data sets and building leaderboards of performance, which completely neglects the deployment context. Further, media companies and CEOs continue to promise that AI is going to solve all of these issues. If we just keep investing in AI, it's going to solve all of our problems. But from what we understand, AI's use in platforms is highly overstated, even after the invention of your student's favorite tool, ChatGPT. So perhaps I've convinced you that AI cannot do this task very well. But I think there's actually a more important question that we should be asking, not only in this context, but in the context that AI is being applied to all over. That is, we shouldn't be asking, how well can AI solve these problems? But instead, we should be asking, should AI solve these problems? Even better, if we're going to deploy an AI, what are the consequences of deploying an AI that is going to make mistakes? A huge amount of recent research suggests that when you give a consumer a warning label on Facebook or Twitter or TikTok, they listen to it. They change how they trust, they change what they share. And with AI, this is even more persuasive, surprisingly, even for those who distrust fact checkers and distrust news organizations. So what you may be thinking is, well, this is a good thing, right? If an AI tool is mostly good, then the consumers mostly benefit. But what this assumes is that all errors are created equal, which in news and information, they are not. It's very different to mislabel critical health information versus mislabeling a trade rumor in the NFL, right? Very different decisions. Too often we treat outcomes from AI systems like we do weather forecast. When a weather forecast predicts there's a 90% chance of rain, the 10% chance it does not rain has little effect on the information consumers. We bring an umbrella and we don't end up using it. However, when fake news detection tool predicts that there's a 90% chance a news article is reliable, what happens the 10% time that it gets it wrong? What if that information influences a critical health decision? Or what if it changes the way someone votes in a presidential election? So yes, there are critical issues in our media ecosystems right now, in particular, and finding interventions to alleviate them is crucial. But the nuanced, ever-changing nature of news and the truth is just too important to give up to machines. Thanks.